Just turn toward the case. I'll swear you in.
If you can raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You can put your hand down, take a seat. Can you state your name for the record?
Charles Coppinger.
Mr. Coppinger, how are you currently employed?
I'm employed as a physician assistant at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Orthopedics.
Okay. And what do you do as a physician assistant at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta?
I diagnose and treat patients under supervision of a physician, not direct supervision. They review our charts. I mostly see acute injuries.
Okay. And what do you mean by acute injuries?
Fractures, sprains, strains, any kind of trauma kind of stuff.
So you said that you are currently with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. How long have you been with? How long have you officially been under the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta umbrella?
Oh, since I was previously with Children's Orthopedics of Atlanta, and they bought out our practice in December of last year.
So in October of 2015, who technically was your employer at that point?
Children's Orthopedics of Atlanta.
Were you officially under the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta umbrella at that point?
No, sir.
And your background, have you primarily worked in the orthopedics field?
Yes, for basically for 17 to 18 years I've been in orthopedics, and 15 to 16 of that exclusively with pediatrics.
Okay. Did you ever have an occasion to treat Layla Daniel?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you recall the date that you first treated Layla Daniel?
That was on October 23rd of 2015.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move into Evidence States Exhibit 187, which is the medical records from Children's Orthopedics of Atlanta. It does have an attached affidavit of certification of records. Sir, if you ever need to look at the records, because it's not a memory test, so if you need to look at these, just let us know, okay? You said that she came in on October 23rd, 2019, correct?
Yes.
What was your knowledge at the time of any prior visits that she may have had with other providers?
The only visit that I was aware of at the time was a visit with the Children's Healthcare Urgent Care at Hudson Bridge.
Were you aware of a visit with Dr. Duxbury?
No, sir.
What was the purpose of Layla visiting you that day?
She had a leg injury on her right leg, which turned out to be a fracture.
And do you recall how she came into your office that particular day? As far as, did she have any medical devices on her body at that time?
Oh, yes. She came in. She had been seen at the urgent care, and they had placed her in a splint, which is sort of almost like half of a cast, which is it's a fiberglass that goes down the back of the leg, and then it's wrapped on with like an ace bandage.
Okay. Now, do you recall who she was brought in by?
It was her mother, according to my notes. I can't recall, like I said, if it was foster mother. I didn't, that part is not in my notes, whether it was foster or not. So.
Okay. She was brought in by someone identifying as her mother.
Yes.
All right. And did you get a history from this person regarding how Layla hurt her leg?
Yes.
And what was the history that you received?
The history was that she was at a gymnastics facility, and a sibling had a class there. She wasn't there for a class, and she went out, was playing, and climbed on a balance beam, and had fell off the balance beam.
Was there anything mentioned about being on bars?
No, sir.
Was there anything mentioned about doing a pike?
No.
Did she indicate what happened on the balance beam?
Just that she climbed on it and that she fell off of it.
Did she provide you with the date of this injury?
Yes, it was it was October 18th of 2015.
And that would have that would have been the day before she went to the urgent care center, is that correct?
Yes.
Did at any point she mention anything about falling in the grandmother's yard?
No, sir.
When you did you see the x-rays?
Yes, sir.
All right. And was there a fracture there?
Yes, there was a fracture in her proximal tibia, which is the upper end of the bone in the lower leg.
Okay. At that time, based upon the history that you had, did you have any concerns at that particular time?
No, I did not.
What did you do as a result of having this particular fracture?
We at the time we placed her in a cast, which comes up above her knee to about mid-thigh and down to her foot.
Now, do you do an examination?
Yes, sir.
What do you examine?
And so typically, with my practice being acute injuries, our exam is pretty focused. And so typically it's mainly just the affected extremity. We do sometimes compare to the opposite extremity. Also, we usually don't do a full body physical exam though. So
Okay, so just because I didn't do so well in science, okay. If you're doing just when you're talking about the extremities, if someone comes in complaining of the leg, you may look at the other leg.
Yes.
Is that correct? But you may not necessarily look at the arms.
exactly.
All right. Now tell me about how, I guess the clothing, if someone were to have this type of fracture, what kind of clothing can you treat them in?
Typically, if it's a lower extremity or leg fracture, if they come in shorts, then a lot of times we can just leave them in the shorts that they're in. If it's in one of the cooler months and they're in pants, then we provide them with some paper type shorts that we put them in.
Did you have, from the examination, did you note any bruising that wasn't associated with the fracture?
Not anything out of the ordinary.
Did you note any bruising that was associated with the fracture?
Yes, there was some mild bruising around the fracture site.
Is that typical for this type of fracture?
Yes, that's very typical. And typically the bruising is more when they have a fracture, the bone bleeds underneath the skin, and that will come to the surface. And so typically you'll see that within 3 or 4 days after they have a fracture.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you were not aware of her going to another orthopedic doctor, correct?
That is correct.
If you had known that, would that have caused any concern for you?
Yes, definitely so, as to why they were coming to a second provider.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yes, that would concern me as to why they were not treated by that provider and are coming to a second provider. So there would have been definitely more questions asked at that point.
If they were referred to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, would that have concerned, to go to the Eggleston campus, would that have concerned you as well?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because typically, if any time that I myself send someone, refer them to the Eggleston campus or our Scottish Rite campus, which is the main two hospitals that we refer to, it's typically for either some type of surgical intervention or there's a suspicion of non-accidental trauma.
Now, what did you do? I think you said that you did some casting on the leg, correct? Can you
Yes.
describe to us where you put the cast on the leg?
Okay, so the cast basically runs from her mid-thigh, down and out to the toes.
Showing you states 157. Is that the, I don't think we need them off. Is that the cast, is that the cast that you put on Layla?
Yes, yes, sir.
So how high up on the thigh, I know we can't quite see it quite well on that one, how high up on the thigh does it go?
Yeah,
If you could stand for us.
Mid-thigh, maybe 3/4 the way up the thigh. There's a little bit of leeway.
If you could stand for us and just kind of indicate on yourself.
So typically, it will go anywhere from mid-thigh to here. You know, just enough to give you enough room where it doesn't rub there
Okay.
too high.
Now, is there ever any bruising or chafing that people might get from having a cast on?
There could be some, maybe a little mild chafing, not bruising though, not typically.
Now, is that the only time that you saw Layla Daniel?
No, sir.
And when was the second time that you saw her?
The second time was a week later, which was on 10/30.
And what was the purpose of that exam?
That was a follow-up visit for the fracture. Typically, with a fracture, if it is what we term a complete fracture, which means it goes all the way through the bone, those have potential to shift around even in a cast, and so we see them back in a week to make sure that they're staying lined up and not shifting, and make sure they're healing properly.
How long is this? Exam normally? How long does it normally take?
That visit is usually very quick. Basically, we take a quick look at the cast, make sure everything looks like it's fitting well, and we shoot a quick x-ray, and that's basically the extent of the second visit.
Do you do any sort of examination on the rest of her body?
No, sir.
Was that the last time that you saw Layla Daniel?
No.
All right. When was the last time you saw
her? To get her cast off, and that was on November 13th of 2015.
And you said that was the to get her cast off?
Yes, sir.
How extensive of an exam or visit would this type of visit be?
It's somewhere between the other two. Basically, you do an exam of that extremity. Typically, I'll kind of compare it with the other extremity and show the parents, because typically when they've been in a cast like that, they'll have some muscle atrophy from not using that leg, and so usually I'll kind of compare and show this to show the parents, hey, look, this leg's going to be weaker, and they'll have a little bit of a limp for a little while afterwards.
Okay. Do you recall who brought her in?
Her mother again at that time, and I believe there was a gentleman with her too at that time. I'm not sure if it was father. I'm not sure.
Okay.
To be honest.
So the clothing. Do you recall the clothing that she was in?
She had on and I think the first visit it was the one that I recall that she had on it was sort of a Halloween themed outfit. It had kind of some flared little legs at the bottom of it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it had flared legs.
I'll show you this fence is Exhibit 10. And is this what you observed her wearing or not?
Yes.
And was that
That was it.
that was on the last day?
That was, I can't remember if it was the first one or the last one, but I remember the outfit. Like, to be honest, I can't 100% say. that it
Judge,
was-
I would just note for the record that the stipulated date is November 14th of 2015. And that was the same day that she came in to see you, correct?
The 13th.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes,
the 13th.
13th,
My bad.
yes.
Tell me about did you notice anything at that exam that seemed out of the ordinary to you?
No, sir.
And again, what parts of the body did you examine or look at on this type of visit?
Mainly the affected leg, the other leg, like I said, for comparison purposes. But and if the rest of the body, we don't really examine at that point.
Okay. And Did you notice anything when you took off the cast that seemed unusual?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. I want to show you what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit 54. This particular, do you recognize the area of the body that this would be?
That is looks like the inner thigh.
Okay. And is that the same leg that the cast was on?
It appears to be, yes.
Now, was there any indication that the cast caused that injury?
No.
Would the cast have even gone up that high?
No, the cast was, first of all, the cast wasn't up that high, and second of all, I would have noted that too. If I saw that, because that would be unusual to see that.
I want to show you the State's Exhibit 56, which is the flip side, looking at that same injury. Again, is there any indication that the cast caused that injury?
No, sir.
Did you see anything even remotely appearing like that when you took the cast off?
No.
All right. Would the cast have even been that high?
It should not have been that, no.
And I'll show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 57. Did you see any of those bruises on Layla when she visited you on the 13th?
Not that I recall. So, not that I recall seeing any bruises there. So.
Okay. And was that the last time that you examined Layla Daniel?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nothing further at this time.
Thank you. Cross.
Mr. Coppinger, Dr. Coppinger?
I'm a physician assistant.
Physician
Mr.
assistant.
Coppinger.
Mr. Coppinger, my name is Kareen Mull. I'm going to ask you a number of questions. I just ask that you let me know if you don't understand my question or if I'm not speaking loud enough, if you'd let me know. Mr. Coppinger, you saw Layla on 10. The first time you saw her was on which date?
On October 23rd.
On October 23rd.
Yes.
And you had been told that symptoms had begun on what date?
On October 18th.
Were they given you a date, or were they just told you several days before?
They would have given me a date.
Okay.
You know, that's one thing. If you talk to my staff at the office, that's one thing I'm very particular about. Is I want a date of injury on there, because sometimes when they're bringing patients back and doing that and putting the stuff in, some people tend to want to put last Tuesday or something like that. And I'm very particular. I talk to them all the time. I want the date. I want the date on the chart of the date of injury.
And you noted that she was well nourished and in no distress, correct?
Yes, correct.
And how did she come to you? Did she walk, or was she carried in?
At that point, she was carried.
She was carried in. And you said that she had full range of motion, correct? Full ROM.
Yes, yes.
You noted that she had no tenderness.
Not on the, I would have noted that she had tenderness. Yes, she did have tenderness.
She
On the
did
right.
have tenderness, or she had no
Yeah,
tenderness?
no, she had tenderness on the right lower extremity. The left lower extremity, my note says that had no tenderness, but the right lower extremity did have tenderness.
And lesions, abrasions, bruises, or lacerations, what did you say?
Nothing that was out of the ordinary. With kids, the majority of kids that come in will have a bruise here or there. That's not uncommon, but nothing was noted that was out of the ordinary.
Is this type of bruising what you would call out of the ordinary?
That could be considered ordinary, depending on the kid.
Okay. And you wrote down that what the x-rays showed you was a minimally impacted proximal tibia fracture,
Yes.
correct? What does minimally impacted mean?
Means, basically when we say impacted, kind of crushed down just a little bit.
Okay, so wouldn't require a great deal of force?
Sort of a medium amount of force, I would say.
Okay.
So,
Sufficient force that a 2-year-old could exert when falling?
if they fell from a little bit of a height, yes. The most common way we see these is trampolines, which have force coming up, and that's, in this age group, that's the most common thing that we see is from a trampoline. The force of the trampoline, usually there's an older kid and a younger kid, and the trampoline's coming up and the kid is coming down, and that's the most common, by far the most common way we see these. Probably 90% of them are.
So, but gymnastics did not seem to be out of the ordinary to
No,
you?
if she was on a balance beam and fell off, that seemed plausible.
Where in your notes did you say that there was a balance beam?
So with my notes, I didn't state specifically that there was a balance beam. And in my notes, it said that there was that it was a sports injury, and that's basically from memory that it was a balance beam.
But could you be mistaken? Could it have been some other type of fall from gymnastics?
I specifically remember her saying, Mom saying, she climbed on the balance beam and fell off. And that she wasn't taking a class, that it was a sibling that was taking a class, and she was just there, and she went over and climbed up on the beam and fell off.
And when you saw her, she was in a diaper and a pull-up, right?
I believe that she probably had a pull-up on. I can't say 100% certain there.
And you didn't see any cuts or lacerations or
No.
bruising
No.
anywhere?
No, not anything out of the ordinary.
And you didn't see any evidence that she was favoring her arm or holding her arm as if it hurt?
No, ma'am.
You didn't notice anything having to do with her arm as being painful or tender?
No, with my exam, I didn't notice her not using it or any kind of deformity or anything like that. I didn't do a specific exam on the arm, but I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary with the arm at the time.
And she didn't hold it up to you and say it hurts or anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You said she appeared well-nourished and without distress, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, what did you put her in when you say you put her in a cast?
It, basically a cast is, it's made of fiberglass. It's wrapped on there. Underneath there is cotton padding underneath there, and initially you put on a cotton, what we call a stockinette, which is kind of like a long sock that goes underneath there, and then you wrap cotton padding, and then you wrap the fiberglass as it's wet, and then as it dries, it hardens.
And did you put her in a boot?
She would have been given a what we term a cast shoe, which is just a little thing that straps over the bottom of the cast so she can put weight on it.
And tell me if you would, did you give her any type, is it typical with children that sometimes you give them a piece of the stockinette or a piece of the cotton?
Yes, sometimes we do. Yeah, sometimes they'll be in there and they'll kind of play with it, and we'll let them have that. Yes.
And do you recall doing that for Layla?
I don't recall specifically. No.
But it would not surprise you?
No, it would not.
Do you recall putting, well, let me ask you this. Why did you put a full cast? Would it have been appropriate to have left her in a splint?
Not typically. The reason being is the splints don't support the fracture as well. With the splint, they're not able to get up and weight bear on that splint, and it's really hard to keep a young child off of it to start with, so they need the extra protection of a cast. And also a splint can loosen more over time and can cause some problems, especially with the heel area of getting pressure sores with the younger kids.
So leaving her for a week in a cast or a day leaving her for a day or a week in a splint would not have been proper medical treatment, would it?
No, for a short term, it is. For long term, it's not. For short term, the reason that they initially splint them as opposed to casting them is, well, there's a couple of reasons. One is so when they come to see us, we can get a good exam of our own. And then number two is for the first 2 or 3 days, the fractures tend to swell, okay? And if you put a cast on immediately, the cast can get too tight, whereas a splint, because the front of it is just an ace bandage that gives, and so that's the reason we use the splint. Usually, typically, depending on the fracture, anywhere from one day to some fractures, we leave them in a splint for as much as a week or more, okay? If it's a really bad fracture that we're really concerned with the swelling.
That was not the case in this
So-
situation, was
so,
it?
No, this,
And did you give her a cast shoe?
yes, we would have given her a cast shoe.
Did you give her a walker boot or a cam walker?
No, ma'am.
Did you do fiberglass casting?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 182. Tell me, if you would, which of those did you do for Layla Daniel?
So, we would have done fiberglass casting. This is not anything from my office, though.
I understand, I'm just asking you to look at the list.
Fiberglass casting, and then I'm trying to see if there's I don't see a cast shoe on there. I just see the walker boot, so I don't see the cast shoe on there. But typically, I think, and
Is
there
that
it is.
a cast
Okay,
shoe?
yes, so cast shoe, yes.
Anything else on this list that you put on her?
No, that would be all.
Thank you.
So.
Let me show you what I had marked as Defendant's Exhibit 122. And asked you if this is the cast that you put on Layla.
Yes, ma'am. That is the cast, and that is our, appears to be one of our cast shoes also, so.
So she was meant to walk on it.
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, the more the better?
Typically, the weight bearing, the act of weight bearing will stimulate it to heal a little faster.
So the more she walks on it, the better it is for her. At this time, Your Honor, is that a yes?
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, I would tender number 122 into the record, Your Honor, and ask to publish. show us the fiberglass casting?
The pink is the fiberglass, and then the black is the stockinette that goes underneath it, and then between those two there is cotton.
And what's on her wrist?
That's,
Is that not a piece of the stockinette?
yes, it appears to be a piece of the stockinette.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you. Can you read it?
Let me ask you this, can different providers use different materials?
Yes, to an extent.
Okay. And you mentioned you don't know what, that's not from your office, correct?
Yes. That's
All right. Let me ask you this. Ms. Mole asked you whether or not it is appropriate to leave a child in a splint for several days, correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, would it have been appropriate to leave a child in a splint and send them to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta for further evaluation and treatment?
Yes, sir.
Would it have been appropriate for the person who is caring for them to ignore that medical advice?
No, that would not be appropriate.
Did Ms. Rosenbaum ever mention to you anything about, during these follow-up visits, anything about Layla having any issues falling in the cast?
Not that I recall. Obviously, any kid is going to be with the cast on is going to be a little more unsteady, but there was nothing that I recall.
Okay, so nothing that stands out to you. Okay, nothing further, Judge.
So it would not be unexpected that she might trip or give way?
Yes, that could be very possible.
And at your office, when you send somebody to Eggleston, do you give them a sheet of paper that says that you should go to Eggleston? This is the address, this is who you should ask for?
Typically, yes.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. And you can sit down. Any objection to these witnesses being excused? And you're excused from the case. State calls next witness.
State calls Karmen Scott.
Karmen Scott.
Have you raised your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
And if you could state and spell your name for the record, you can have a seat.
My name is Karmen Scott, Karmen Scott.
Thank you. And Ms. Scott, how are you currently employed?
I work for the Henry County Health Department.
What do you do for the Henry County Health Department?
I provide Children's First services for participants that are referred to the program.
What is Children's First?
Children's First is a referral and resource program. We do family assessments and developmental screenings, and we refer the families to other services that they may need, like WIC services or Babies Can't Wait services, DFACS, pediatricians. We give them phone numbers and contact information.
Are certain families required to have a child's first assessment?
The program is designed to be free and voluntary. However, DFACS strongly encourages their children that are in the foster system to be assessed.
And how long have you been in the position you're in now?
Since 2015.
When in 2015 did you start?
September.
Now, on October 28th of 2015, did you see Millie Place and Layla Daniel?
Yes, I did.
And how come you saw them on October 28th?
Excuse me?
How come you saw the children?
Oh, they were referred through the DFACS system to be assessed for developmental screenings.
Who brought them?
Jennifer Rosenbaum.
When you do a screening, do you do a full body exam?
No. The screenings are mostly socioeconomical screenings. It's developmental. The parent or guardian fills out the paperwork ahead of time, and I just review it with them. It's all paper. We don't do any physical assessment at all.
And is the paperwork they fill out, what is it called?
Ages and Stages Questionnaire, it's called ASQ. I use the ASQ 3 version, and it's a standard screening. Pediatricians also use the same screenings when they do well checks.
And is the screening different depending on, or is the questionnaire different depending on the child's age?
Yes, it goes by age. It's 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, so forth, up until 5 years old, or 60 months.
Now, with Millie's assessment, did you use the questionnaire with her?
Yes,
Okay. And did you use the 48-month-old questionnaire?
yes, if that was her age. It is according to age, so depending on her age at the time.
And you indicated that the paperwork is filled out by the child's guardian.
Correct,
So in Millie's case, that would have been Jennifer Rosenbaum.
yes.
And how did Jennifer answer the question, has your child had any medical problems in the last several months?
I'm not sure right this minute. I'd have to look at the
Okay.
form.
But looking at the questionnaire assist you in answering that question? If you looked at Millie's questionnaire,
Oh.
would that help you answer the
Yes,
question?
if I looked at the, yes, because I don't remember word for word. Oh, okay, yes, so it says no. That is true.
And how did Jennifer answer the question, do you have any concerns about your child's behavior?
She answered no.
And how did Jennifer answer the question, does anything about your child worry you?
She noted that, yes, she had a concern that she has a semi-attachment issue. Semi-attachment issues is how it's written.
On Millie's questionnaire, was there any concern noted about lying?
Not according to this page.
In Millie's questionnaire, was there any notation about a history of abuse regarding Millie?
Not on this questionnaire.
Okay. How did Millie act during the appointment?
Well-behaved, quiet.
Is it your practice to take a photo of the child when they come in for an appointment?
Yes, the clerks do that at the front desk when they're first being processed. They check their income, Medicaid, and they take a picture for their medical record. It's just a headshot through glass.
Through glass, you said?
Through the glass, yeah, through the glass.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 188 and see if you recognize it.
Oh, yes, I do.
And how do you recognize it?
Well, that's Millie, because she had that purple bow.
And is that how Millie appeared to you when you saw her in October of 2015?
Yes.
This time I tender State's Exhibit 188 into evidence and ask for permission to publish.
Admitted to be published.
So this is how Millie appeared at her appointment. Ms. Scott?
Yeah.
Now I want to turn your attention to Layla's questionnaire. Would looking at her questionnaire help you in answering some of the questions?
Yes, please.
On Layla's questionnaire, how did Jennifer answer the question, has your child had any medical problems in the last several months?
She answered that she had a fractured tibia shin bone from a fall at gymnastics.
How did Jennifer answer the question, do you have any concerns about your child's behavior?
When she gets angry, she has fits of rage.
How did Jennifer answer the question, does anything about your child worry you?
Yes, bio mother's meth use during pregnancy.
Was there any mention of concern of a history of child abuse?
No.
Did Jennifer identify any other areas of concern with regards to Layla?
No.
How did Layla act during the appointment?
She was very quiet, She was being held because she still had the cast on her leg. So she was being held through the entire visit.
And did you also take, or someone at your office take a photo of Layla on that date?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
May-
I'm going to show you what I've previously marked as State's Exhibit 189 and see if you recognize that photograph.
Yes.
And is that a fair and accurate picture of how Layla appeared to you on October 28, 2015?
Yes.
And at this time, I tender State's Exhibit 189 into evidence and ask for permission to publish. And you indicated that Layla was being held the entire time because she had a cast on?
Yes.
And who was holding her?
Jennifer.
Approximately how long was the appointment that you had?
Maybe 20 to 30 minutes.
And were services recommended for either Layla or Millie?
Well, the program itself, the assessment is completed with the developmental screenings, and the monitoring is not a requirement, and so she opted out of that.
When you say she, who is that?
Jennifer Rosenbaum.
No further questions, thank you.
I have no questions.
No questions. All right, ma'am, thank you. You can step down. Any
Okay.
objection to the witness being excused?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're excused.
Thank you.
State will call next witness.
State will call Trisha Blissett.
Trisha Blissett.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please lower your hand and you can have a seat. Can you state and spell your first and last name?
Trisha Blissett, Trisha Blissett.
And Ms. Blissett, how are you employed?
At Gym Tech for Kids.
And how long have you been with Gym Tech?
9 years.
And what are your duties as an employee with Gym Tech?
I am the office manager.
And what does that mean? What all do you have to do as the office manager?
I take care of all the customers as they come in, the parents and the kids. I give them their trial classes. I give them their waivers, their parent information to fill out. I take their money, pretty much everything.
So all the back office stuff.
Mhm.
Are you involved in teaching any of the classes or coaching any of the kids that attend Gym Tech?
No.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked in State's Exhibit number 190. You can flip through it and let me know if you recognize that.
Yes.
And what is State's Exhibit 190?
I'm sorry.
What is State's Exhibit 190?
This is, I had to sign it to say that all this information was correct and had not been tampered with or anything.
And is all the information that you provided to our office part of that packet that I just handed you?
Yes.
Okay, has there been any changes or deletions to any of that information?
No.
State would ask that State's Exhibit 190 be admitted into evidence.
Minute for 9.
Thank you. And Ms. Blissett, when someone comes to Gym Tech, what happens if they are looking to join Gym Tech?
The first thing I do is give them a waiver for them to fill out, because before a child can enter the floor, they have to fill out the waiver. And then if they decide that they're going to sign up, then I give them the parent information stuff where they fill all that out.
So the parent information and the waiver, is there anything else that has to be filled out? And at some point in 2015, did you come into contact with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And what occasion did you have to come into contact with her?
She came up and she asked me if she could do a trial class. And I said yes. I gave her the waiver. She went out to the gym, and I was sitting in there and I was like, I never got the waiver back. And so then I went out to the gym and I asked her where it was, and she said that she wasn't sure if the little girl was going to do the, Layla was going to do the class or not.
Let me back you up.
Uh-huh.
Was Ms. Rosenbaum, did she have a child participating at Gym Tech?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recall who that child was?
Millie.
And do you recall when she signed up?
Like it's the end of September.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's part of the state's packet number 191. What are we looking at in state's 191? What form is this as part of that packet?
That is the student enrollment form. That's what I give them after they do their trial if they decide that they are definitely going to sign up.
Okay. And what's the date on that form?
September 21st, 15.
So would that have been the date that she did a trial class?
She could have done the trial class that day. Sometimes the parents will go ahead and fill them out and give them to me that day, and then sometimes they'll return them. But that's more than likely the day that she did the trial, because that was the first day that I believe that we have a payment from her.
And what name was the child registered under?
Millie Rosenbaum.
Did you have any knowledge that of the name of Millie Place?
No,
And who fills out this form?
the parent.
And down at the bottom where it talks about emergency contact, what does that contain and what is that talking about?
That's just like the person that you call if something were to happen to the child, or if they didn't get picked up from class and you needed to call somebody, or couldn't get in touch with the parent.
And does it contain any other information in regards to insurance?
I don't believe that one does. Believe the other one does, maybe.
Under the emergency contact portion.
Oh yeah, like if we need to transport them, if they get hurt, yes.
And according to this document, who was the insurance provider for Millie at that time?
Jennifer Rosenbaum.
And under what insurance company?
Medicaid.
And at that time, after September the 21st, was Millie in fact enrolled at Gym Tech?
Yes.
And what classes was she taking at Gym Tech?
She was taking one of our preschool classes.
And do you know when those classes took place?
Back then, I believe we had them on Mondays and maybe Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
You said Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
Would the child, if she was attending those classes, go to every one of those days?
No, they come to one class once a week. And
And
her
do you-
day was on a Monday.
And do you recall what time that class was?
It was, I don't know, not exactly. Mm-mm.
And I'm showing another part of State's 190. And can you tell me what this is that we're looking at?
That is the waiver form that they have to fill out before they can get on the floor.
And was this form filled out?
For Millie?
Yes, for Millie?
Yes.
Okay, and what day was that filled out?
September 21st, 2015.
And for the classes, you indicated that you handled the billing as well.
Correct.
And how much did it cost to attend these classes?
$60 a month, and there was a $40 registration fee.
And was payment made for Millie to attend Gym Tech?
Yes.
I'm showing you another part of State's Exhibit number 1. And what is in this form that we're looking at here?
That's our statements that we have.
And what child is this dealing with?
Millie.
And can you tell me when was the first charge made for the account?
September 21st, 2015.
And what was the charge for September the 21st of 2015?
That $55 is the $40 registration fee, And we had like one class left in September, and so that's a charge of $15, and so then that was what that was for.
And
The
the,
15.
and the second charge?
The $7 was for a T-shirt.
And the next charge was when?
September 28th, that would have been like her October payment.
And the charge after that?
November 1st, that was for tuition, $60.
And the next one?
The 15 was for a leotard that they wear when they do gymnastics.
And then the final one?
That was December's tuition.
Okay, and was that amount actually received for December the 1st?
No,
And why not, if you know?
I don't know, they just didn't pay it. She wasn't coming any longer.
Okay. And you talked about the role. Are you in charge of keeping the role as well?
The coaches
The coaches keep the role?
Coaches take the role.
Is the role kept as part of your records for Gym Tech?
Yes,
And did you provide a copy of that, the role for Millie, the classes that she attended?
yes.
Was Millie signed up for this class?
Yes,
And what day is this on?
Monday,
And what time?
4 to 4:55.
And who makes the indications or notations as to whether or not the child attends?
The coaches,
So any marks on this, would you have made it or would it have been the coach?
the coach.
And same with the horseshoe states exhibit number 190. What class is this dealing with?
That's the same class, just a new roll sheet.
Now, at the top it says class Ravens. What does that mean?
That's just the name of our classes, our preschool classes.
And who was Millie's coach during the time that she was enrolled at Gym Tech?
Natalie Harrington.
Now, was there a second child that was with Ms. Rosenbaum when she would attend Gym Tech?
Yes,
And who was that child?
Layla.
And at any time, was Layla enrolled in classes at Gym Tech?
No,
And did you check your paperwork in order to determine whether or not you had any registration paperwork for Layla
Yes.
Daniel? And did you have any paperwork for Layla Daniel?
no,
At any point in time, was there a discussion regarding Layla participating in the classes?
yes.
Do you recall when that was?
Like October 2015,
And who did you have that discussion with?
Jennifer.
And can you tell me what happened during that discussion?
Yeah, she asked if she could do a trial class, and so I said yes. And so that's when I gave her the waiver and asked her to fill it out.
And did she in fact fill that waiver out?
No,
What happened on that day in regards to Layla doing a trial class?
okay. When I gave her the waiver and I asked her to fill it out, and then she didn't return it to me. So then I went out into the gym and asked her about it. She said she wasn't sure if she was going to take the class because she had been complaining of a hurt leg, and so she wasn't sure if she was going to take it. And I said, well, if she does the class and she goes on the floor, you have to give me that waiver. I have to have it. And so she said, okay. And then I just went back into the office.
And did you ever get that waiver back from her?
No,
Do you recall what date that was?
not the exact date, no,
If I show you a piece of paper, would that help to refresh?
probably.
And this is the final page of State's Exhibit number 90, you know.
October 19th.
Did you see the defendant Jennifer Rosenbaum after that class on the 19th?
No,
Okay. And did you ever discuss whether or not Layla had actually gone out and did the trial class with her?
no,
Okay. Did you at some point find out whether or not Layla had been on the mats at Gym Tech on that day?
no.
When was the next time that you spoke with Ms. Rosenbaum?
I believe maybe the following week or that. She asked me, I guess on the 19th, if I could fill out some paperwork to invoice her so that she could go to DFACS to see if they would pay if she decided to take classes.
And did you do an invoice for her?
I did.
Okay. And I'm showing you the final thing, exhibit number 190. Is that the invoice?
Yes.
And can you just walk us through what all of this means on this invoice?
Yeah, that would be the $40 registration, the last class for one class for October, and then 6 months worth of classes. And I was sent to send it to DFACS, or she was going to pick it up and take it to them.
Did she ever pick it up?
No,
Did you ever send it to DFACS?
no,
Did Layla ever come in and begin to take classes at Gym Tech?
no.
Do you guys have what's called open play at
Ye-
Gym Tech?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is just as an open gym where they come in with their parent and they just kind of get to have free time in the gym, run around playing, and the parent is with them at all times.
Okay. And when, in 2015, did you guys have open play?
We had those on like Mondays and Thursday mornings,
When you say morning, what time in the morning?
10:30 to 11:30.
And when a parent wanted to come in and participate in open play, did they have to fill out anything?
Yes, everybody that comes in, whether it's a birthday party or anything, but any child that comes into the gym that is going to get on the floor has to sign the waiver.
And did you, to your knowledge, did Millie Rosenbaum Place or Layla Daniel ever participate in open play at Gym Tech?
No.
Okay. And how do you know that?
I went back through all my waivers, and I never saw their name on anything.
Are you familiar if a child is ever injured at Gym Tech, what is the process and procedure of handling that situation?
We have an injury report, and all of our coaches know that they have to fill that out and give it to the parent to sign, and then we keep a copy of it in our pocket.
Okay. And I'm showing you the final page with some part of states number, exhibit number 190. Is this the form that you're speaking of?
Yes.
And if a form of that nature was filled out for a child at Gym Tech, who would get that form and who would keep that form?
They would give it to me, and I would file it.
Okay. And did you ever receive any reports of an accidental injury regarding Millie Rosenbaum Place or Layla Daniel?
No.
When the next time, when was after the October the 19th conversation with Ms. Rosenbaum, do you recall the next time you saw her?
That was probably around the beginning of November, like the 2nd November maybe.
Okay. And did you have any conversation with her at that time?
Yes.
And-
That was, she bought a Leo, and I talked to her about the Leo that she's buying.
When she came on November the 2nd, did you see Millie or Layla with her at that time?
I saw Layla. The children usually just, the parents will come see me, and the kids usually just run on back to their class.
And when you saw Layla, what did you observe about her on November the 2nd?
She was holding her, and she had a pink cast on her leg.
Did you inquire about how she ended up with the cast on?
I did not, but our owner talked to her about it.
At any point, did Ms. Rosenbaum indicate to you that Layla had been hurt while at Gym Tech?
No.
Nothing further at this time.
Ma'am?
Excuse me, did you look up the forms under Layla Rosenbaum?
I did both.
And it's your testimony, as you sit here today, that that invoice was not given to Jennifer, correct? Was given to Jennifer, I mean.
The invoice?
Yes.
I don't recall ever giving it to her.
But it's possible you did.
Maybe, but I don't remember doing it.
And there are little slides in your gym, are they not short slides on the ground? And it's fair to say that kids that come and watch their siblings play may wander around and play on some of the equipment.
No, if they're not in a class, they are not allowed on the floor.
But sometimes they do that anyway, don't they? And parents
No.
go with them, and so
No.
that's never
Not-
happened.
Not if they're not in a class, no.
Never happened in your entire time.
If they walk out there, our coaches get them. They know that parents, we're very strict about that.
So, let me show you what I've marked as Defendant's Exhibit 123. Let's see if you can identify that.
That is a coach with a student.
And who's the student?
That may be Layla. I didn't see the kids a lot, or Millie. I just never, because I'm in the office. I know who majority of the parents are, but like I said, the kids always just go straight to class and half the time I don't know who they are.
So you don't see what happens in the gym, you're in the office, correct? So if a parent and
I mean, I'm all over the place. I'm in and out of the gym.
but so you're not constantly at the gym, correct?
Not constantly, no.
So it's possible that a child got on the floor and you wouldn't know about it.
Well, they could get on there, but our coaches are going to tell them to get off.
But you can't assure us that that actually happened, can you? That a coach actually did come and that Layla did not get on the slide by herself or with the help of
Yeah, she
another.
could have done it and they didn't see it, but as soon as they see a child over there, they're going to get them.
But they're handling class, right?
Right, but they will send somebody over there, another coach that's not doing anything, like a
If they
floor
see
manager
it.
or something. Mhm.
This time, Your Honor, I would tender into the record Defendant's Exhibit 123 and ask to publish.
No objection.
Admitted, you would publish.
Have the lights. Now, in that picture, there are 2 levels of bars, are there not?
Mhm.
And do you know what the heights are of those bars?
I do not.
You don't. That ladder is a Jacob's ladder, correct?
Yeah, the ladder is for the team students.
But that ladder is out there, correct? It's accessible, isn't it? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
And what do you have on the floor? Is that hard plastic like we see at nursery schools and that sort of thing?
The squares, yes.
The squares that they just piece in together? Okay, so they're not necessarily soft, they're firm, correct? Is that a yes?
Yeah, they're pretty soft, but they're firm too.
And it's correct, isn't it? Would you know if Layla used to sit on the bench or whether she ran around? Would you know that?
I would not know that for every single time she came in there.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Did you ever observe Layla inside that gym area?
No.
And those mats, is that plastic or what are they made of?
The colored squares?
Yes, ma'am.
They're like the little foam mats that you can get like at Sam's or Walmart or wherever.
Thank you, nothing further.
If I could just have one moment. Let me ask you about those dates that you had written down for Millie Rosenbaum. Attendance was taken by the coaches, correct?
Correct.
And In fact, November 19th and November 16th, November 9th and November 16th, Millie was not at the, correct?
I don't know, I didn't memorize the.
Okay, well,
those
let's see if
dates.
this helps refresh your recollection.
Correct.
Isn't it true, Ms. Blissett, that November 9th, gym was canceled?
I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll see if this refreshes your recollection.
Okay, that would have been the open gym in the morning time, because
But that would have been the gym
just the morning class, not the evening classes.
due to the cold weather, correct?
Because sometimes when it gets so cold and by 10:30, 9:30 in the morning,
It's not warm
it's not warm enough for the little ones to come in there.
And so you said on November 9th, your heat was not in working condition, correct? Isn't that what you
It was
sent out
not.
a Facebook notice, isn't that correct?
I don't know if it wasn't working or if it just had not had time to warm up.
See if this refreshes your recollection.
Well, this says November 16th, November the 8th. It doesn't say the 9th.
Well, isn't the one on November the 8th talking about tomorrow being November the 9th?
Okay, yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so does it
So
say?
it says it wasn't working, and so that's why they closed for open gym.
Okay. And so if somebody didn't want their children to be in a cold, unheated building, they wouldn't come, correct?
Correct.
That's why you sent out this notice.
Right.
And on November 16th, you sent out the notice saying the heat is still not working, correct?
Yes.
So if a person did not want their children in the cold, they would not come on 11/16 either, would they?
Right.
Nothing.
Nothing further from the state.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
You can step down. The objections to this meeting, excuse.
Nothing to say,
All right, and you're free to go. Just an appropriate breaking point for you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our lunch break now. We'll see you all back here at 1:15. Thank you.